Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. My parents and twin sister kicked me out at 16. After years of struggling and living in a tent, I now have a house. They showed up uninvited with my sister's family, demanding to move in. My sister asked my parents to throw me out of the house at 16, saying there was no space for me. I struggled for 12 years to have my own place, and now they are parading to let my sister move in with me because she's pregnant with her fourth child. I, a 28-year-old male, have been suffering from my parents' toxicity ever since childhood. I have a twin sister who has been a pain in the butt. People say twins back each other up. If bullying in my childhood was not enough, this time she wants to move into my house with her family despite being the one who threw me out at 16. She has always been narcissistic, mostly because of the wrong parenting. My parents always wanted a daughter, but they got a son along with it. They even told me to my face that they would have terminated the pregnancy if it had been just me. Just because there was a girl in there, they had to bring me into the world, so I owe my life to my sister. My sister would miss no opportunity to rub her entitlement in my face. You can imagine my childhood growing up in a household where I was unwanted. Everything was about my sister. We were of the same age, yet I was not allowed to touch her toys. She got a new set of clothes now and then, while I got only a pair of clothes at Christmas and one on our birthday. If we didn't share our birthday, they wouldn't even bother celebrating it. Oh, I just realized if I didn't share my birthday with my sister, I wouldn't exist. I got the bare minimum things, and that too was not out of love but to save their faces from the judgmental eyes of the relatives. The only good thing about my childhood was my grandfather. He was the only one who was able to see through their BS. Sadly, he passed away when I was 13. That was the worst day of my life. I had no one to have my back. We lived in a tiny house in the suburbs. My sister and I shared a room. It was more like I had a bed in a tiny closet beneath my sister's bed. The entire room was filled with her clothes, toys, and posters. I was not even allowed to complain because, according to my parents, they were doing enough for me. My sister did not like my presence in her room. I was allowed in the room only at night to sleep. Even when I was sick, I had to lie down on the couch and not in my room because she was a girl and needed privacy. I desperately wanted to be 18 so that I could move out of the house. It looked like my family was far more desperate to get rid of me. When we were 16, my sister got knocked up by a 19-year-old loser. His parents had thrown him out of the house when he failed thrice in the 8th grade. My parents got them married, and my father got him a cleaning job at his factory. My father is a mechanic and works at an automobile manufacturing company. My parents brought him home, so obviously I had to move out of my room to make space for him. But our house had only 2 rooms and a tiny living space. I asked if I could sleep on the couch, but my father denied it, saying he sleeps on the couch when my mom's snoring becomes unbearable on winter nights. I was asked to find a place for myself. To add fuel to my situation, my loser brother-in-law would say, "Dude, it's not tough to find a place for yourself. My parents threw me out when I was 15, and yet I was able to put my life together. Now I have a family, trust me, it's going to get better out there." I sighed. Yeah, if living off as a junkie means putting life together and knocking up a minor means family to you, then sure. Most of my relatives lived far off, and moreover, my parents threatened me not to show up at any of their places because that would mean exposing my parents' toxicity. I requested a few of my friends to lend me their couch to sleep. Why on earth would their parents allow me into their house when my own parents kicked me out? But one of my classmates was living in a garage. He let me in for a few months until his parents saw me there and kicked me out. I slept on a bench on the sidewalk for a few days until I was rounded up by the cops and brought home. My parents made up the story that I had run away from home. They took me in that night. My father got me a makeshift tent from a junkyard and asked me to use the space in the backyard to set up my place. It was a reward for remaining silent in front of the cops and obeying their orders of not showing up at the relatives' houses. The tent was still safer than sleeping in the open. Summer was still okay, but winter was terrible. One day it was so cold I felt like I was almost going to die of freezing. I knocked on my house, but no one responded. I desperately needed help. I knocked on my parents' bedroom window. My dad yelled from inside not to disturb him, or else he'd come out and knock me down. I felt so miserable that at one point I wanted to die. I cried the whole night. The next day I went searching for a job that would lend me a space to sleep. One of the bakery shops needed a worker for its factory that was like 20 miles away, but the owner agreed to give me a place to sleep. They baked in their house and needed a helping hand. They offered me to live in their backyard, but I would have to clean it up. I agreed. The place was pretty messed up with flour and sugar all over, not to mention the rodents surviving on them. But I was at the lowest point in my life. I readily took that job. I packed up my stuff and left. My sister was even happy and said, "Good that you're leaving. We don't have space for you here." No one even bothered to ask me where I was going. I cleaned up the place and made it habitable. Initially, it was difficult to get rid of the rodents when they came searching for food, but eventually I felt cozy living there. I had to drop out of high school. There were a few more months left for the final year exams. My friends told me to continue living in my parents' backyard and complete high school, but I had given up. I worked hard at my job and lived off my salary. Soon enough, I realized I had to upskill myself to get a better job. I picked up a few skills. My dad is a mechanic, so I grew up playing with his toolbox. Working for my parents, they didn't have to get me toys, plus I helped Dad with plumbing the house. I saved up and took up a course and a job at a car plant. I worked my ass off to climb up the ladder. Now I'm a supervisor. Recently, one of my old friends was selling off his house urgently. He had some divorce issues and wanted an immediate buyer. I was reluctant to buy a three-bedroom house, but he offered me a hefty discount on the market price and agreed to accept the down payment in parts. I grabbed it. 2 weeks ago, I moved into my new house, and today I found unexpected guests at my door, my parents' sister and brother-in-law. It was a surprise for me because I was not in contact with them all these years. Neither did they reach out to me. This house of mine is nearly 15 miles away from their place, so there's no way they would have bumped into me casually. I'm not in touch with any of the relatives, neither in person nor on social media, but I'm guessing it's the neighbor I'm still friends with. One of my neighbors might have seen the pictures of my house on Facebook and told my parents about it. I still have no idea how they figured out the exact address. My dad knew where I worked, so maybe he got the address from there. As soon as I opened the door, they forced themselves inside my house. Mom and Dad congratulated me and said they were proud of me. I smiled and offered them a chair. I'm yet to get the furniture. I just have a bed, a few chairs, and a table. My parents sat down and started asking me about the deal. It was unbelievable for them that I was able to buy a house at 28 while they were still living on rent. My sister and her deadbeat husband were casually strolling through my house like they were planning to move in. I asked them what the matter was and why they suddenly popped up in my life. They said nothing, just checking on me. Funny, huh? They checked up on me when I needed them the least. They randomly started giving me their life updates. Dad has developed hypertension. My sister has 3 kids, 14, 9, and 4, and she is pregnant again. Well, good for her. I just sat there nodding and thinking whether to yell at them or politely ask them to leave. Mom asked me if I was getting married or had a girlfriend. I said, "It's none of your business." She was like, "Why are you so cranky? Is everything all right?" I said everything was fine until they showed up. My sister said she was looking for a new house. I asked if that was all. She said they needed a place to stay temporarily because their lease was expiring. My father came up with the idea that they should stay here until they find a new house. My sister looked at me with a knowing smile, and I was forced to agree. I said, "I have one condition: you cannot bring any of your stuff with you. Everything should stay in the garage." They all agreed. I think they were in too much of a hurry to grab this opportunity. A week later they moved in. My parents brought a few of their belongings, and I allowed them to use the garage temporarily. Their stuff started to pile up, and now they want to move more of their stuff. I reminded them of the agreement we had, but they said they didn't have enough room for their things in the garage. Their children have been running around making a mess of the place. My sister has been making so many excuses for them. They often leave the doors open and make noise. My parents' stuff is beginning to creep into the shared space, and my sister's children are always crying for one reason or another. My sister said I should get rid of the bed and the chairs because it was too cramped. I said the house is big enough for me and I'm fine with the current arrangement. If you need more space, the garage is open. But they continued to ignore my instructions. They even suggested I might consider moving to a bigger place if I could afford it. I finally blew up and told them they were never going to move in here, and they should leave immediately. Dad said it was not a nice thing to do after they helped me in my time of need. I said they did nothing to help. In fact, they kicked me out of the house when I needed them the most. They were not my family. They were just freeloaders taking advantage of my situation. My father yelled at me to get out and leave the house. I told him to leave my property or I would call the cops. My parents and sister were so stunned that they left immediately. My father even left his stuff behind. My parents are angry and now spreading rumors in the family about how I threw them out and refused to help them. I feel like an asshole for kicking them out of my house. I keep thinking if I had just agreed to let them stay, things might have been different. I'm so tired of this toxic relationship. I wonder if I made the right decision. Update: after kicking out my parents and sister, things have been quite chaotic. My father and sister were furious and immediately started spreading negative stories about me to our extended family. They've been painting me as a heartless person who abandoned his family, and the rumors are spreading faster than I anticipated. A few relatives reached out to me, expressing their disappointment and urging me to reconcile with my family. They've been telling me I should have been more forgiving and that family is important no matter what. I understand their perspective, but it's hard to ignore the years of hurt and betrayal. On the flip side, some of my friends and coworkers have been incredibly supportive. They've helped me stay focused on my work and reminded me that I deserve to set boundaries for my well-being. They've encouraged me to stay firm in my decisions and not let the guilt consume me. I've also started seeking therapy to work through the emotional scars from my childhood and to help me navigate these complicated family dynamics. It's been eye-opening, and I'm slowly learning how to assert my boundaries while managing my own emotions. The house is finally starting to feel like home again. I've been organizing and setting it up the way I want, and it's been a healing process for me. I'm trying to focus on building my life and future, away from the toxicity that once dominated it. I'm still conflicted about the situation with my family. It's tough to see them paint me as the villain when all I wanted was to live peacefully in my own home. I'm trying to stay positive and not let their actions dictate my happiness. Thanks to everyone who's offered their support. It means a lot during this time of self-discovery and healing. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.